Diana was the nation's sweetheart and favorite royal, and not even her divorce from Prince Charles stopped that. As her marriage crumbled and her mental health declined, the media couldn't get enough of the people's princess, and it literally killed her. The events that led to her fatal car crash were set in motion 2 years before her death, when she opened up about life inside the palace. And now that her youngest son is doing the same thing, we need to ensure that disaster doesn't happen again. The interview that started it all. 2 years before her fatal car crash in 1997, Princess Diana was interviewed by the BBC's Martin Bashir. While royal interviews are pretty common these days, there was something odd about this one. Firstly, it was conducted in total secrecy. The rest of the family had no idea it was happening, and Diana gave her staff the day off to prevent leaks. But more importantly, what was said changed the way the world saw the British royal family forever.
I don't feel safe, and I was neurotic always.
Shockingly, a quarter century after the interview aired, we've learned that it was based on lies. Bashir conned Diana into talking with him by showing her bank statements he'd actually faked. He used these to persuade Diana that her staff were being paid to spy on her, and that was just the start. He also convinced her that her mail was being read, her phone calls were recorded, and that her car had been bugged. But worst of all, he made Diana believe that her bodyguard and husband were involved in a plot to murder her. This terrified the princess, because she was already worried about her future in the royal family. After all, her husband was having a very public affair, and when she admitted she was depressed and needed help, it was used against her.
Well, it gave everybody a wonderful new label. It's Diana's unstable, and Diana's mentally imbalanced. And unfortunately, that seems to have stuck on and off over the years.
Once the interview aired, the fallout was swift. Diana lost her title of Her Royal Majesty, and the Queen encouraged Charles to officially divorce her. And behind the scenes, it was even worse. Patrick Jeffson, who was Diana's secretary at the time, admitted after the interview, relationships with Buckingham Palace became very strained. There was a heightened state of anxiety.
When no one listens to you, or you feel no one's listening to you, all sorts of things start to happen. And they think because you're in the media all the time, you've got enough attention.
Despite Bashir apologizing for the deceitful way he conducted the interview in 2021, he doesn't feel personally responsible for what eventually happened. He explained, "I don't feel I can be held responsible for many of the other things that were going on in her life. The suggestion I am singularly responsible is unreasonable and unfair, but not everyone agrees with that." Jeffson added that Diana was snubbed by the family and that her fears of a plot to kill her involving her security team made her vulnerable, and her brother agreed. The Earl of Spencer explained in 2020 that she didn't know who to trust, and in the end, when she died 2 years later, she was without any form of real protection. They're not alone. Diana's friend Simone Simmons was with the princess when she first met with the reporter. Simone explained he destroyed her psychologically and made her paranoid, saying the royals wanted to bump her off and distrust her loyal staff and friends. There is no doubt in my mind that Diana would still be alive today if she hadn't spoken to Bashir. And even if you don't believe the interview led to her death, it did mark the 2-year countdown to her death. A last chance at love. 10 months after Diana spoke to Bashir and aired her marital problems with the Prince of Wales, the Queen suggested that her son should get a divorce. But there was a bright side. In addition to the £17 million lump sum payment from Charles and shared custody of their sons, Diana had a chance to find love again. And this time, she was determined to keep her relationship away from the press. During the divorce proceedings, Diana had the most epic secret meet-cute you can imagine. She was at a hospital visiting a friend who had just had cardiac surgery when the surgeon appeared and her own heart skipped a beat. For Diana, seeing Dr. Hasnat Khan was love at first sight. As she later revealed to a friend, "Isn't he drop-dead gorgeous? I think I've met my Mr. Wonderful." Nothing about the relationship was conventional. It started with an unusual first date in which Hassan invited the princess to a trip to fetch some books from his aunt and uncle's place. After that, the two became inseparable. But their relationship wasn't perfect, and there was a huge problem: the media. Diana tried her best to keep her romance with Hasnat on the down low, even hiding it from her staff because she was so afraid someone would inform the paparazzi, and it wasn't an overreaction. Once the tabloids got wind of their 2-year romance, everything changed. The couple started being followed and were constantly bombarded with questions about marriage. For Hassan, who was totally dedicated to his career, the insane media attention passion was the worst part of his relationship with Diana. In fact, it was one of the main reasons his parents refused to give the couple a blessing. As a result, the paparazzi robbed the princess of the love of her life. Thankfully, Diana didn't need a cardiac surgeon to mend her broken heart, because someone else was up for the job. A month after the breakup, Diana and her sons decided to vacation in France with Egyptian businessman Mohammed Al Fayed and his son Dodi. And then the sparks started to fly. Unlike with Hasnat, Diana decided to be open about her feelings with Dodi because she was convinced that the secrecy about her last relationship only fueled the media's interest. She was wrong. A few days after meeting Dodi, photos of Diana smooching her new boo were published and the tabloids lost their minds. And because of this, just a month later, Diana lost her life. Fleeing from the paparazzi for the last time, on the 30th of August, amid planning her return to the UK, Diana and Dodi decided to go for dinner together in Paris. But when the couple realized the paparazzi had found out about their reservation, they changed their plans and returned to their hotel, and they still weren't alone. Some photographers hoped to spot the couple returning and started waiting for them at the hotel restaurant. So, in a final attempt to get some privacy and avoid being plagued by the cameras, Diana and Dodi decided to go back to Dodi's apartment. However, the paparazzi was still camped out nearby, so they left the hotel by the back entrance to avoid being seen. Sadly, their plan didn't work. They were spotted trying to leave, and the couple was basically mobbed by photographers while they were getting into the car. To get away from all the cameras, the driver tried to speed away and escape via a tunnel. In a devastating mistake, he lost control of the vehicle and crashed into the tunnel. Dodi Fayed was killed instantly, and Diana was badly injured. Thankfully, a doctor was driving past when the crash happened and stopped to try to help the princess, but he was the only one. Despite all the photographers present at the scene of the accident, not one of them tried to help the injured princess. Instead, they just kept taking photos.
She was very much still alive on the back seat. And those people that caused the accident, instead of helping, were taking photographs of her dying on the back seat.
At 4 a.m. on the 31st of August, the People's Princess was pronounced dead, but she could have been saved. In 2019, a forensic pathologist called Dr. Richard Shepard admitted that Diana died because of a very small but incredibly rare injury. But then he dropped a bombshell. Her death would have been totally avoided if she'd been wearing a seatbelt. He revealed had she been restrained, she would probably have appeared in public 2 days later with a black eye, perhaps a bit breathless from the fractured ribs and with a broken arm in a sling. It's heartbreaking to realize that things could have turned out differently, but the news was hardest on the royal family. William and Harry were distraught to learn that they'd lost their mother, but the rest of the family was shocked for a different reason. They were worried they'd be blamed. The royal family was stunned into silence. For 5 long days following the announcement of Diana's death, the world waited for Buckingham Palace to release a statement. Then, amid criticism against the palace for being aloof and cold-hearted, the Queen finally broke the silence in a live broadcast to honor the late princess.
She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness, and especially for her devotion to her 2 boys.
Thereafter, things happened quickly. Diana's funeral was held on the 6th of September and was watched by a mind-boggling 2.5 billion people. But once Diana's body was laid to rest, for the royal family, it was business as usual. In fact, one of the only times the family referred to Diana was during Charles's first speaking engagement since she was laid to rest, just a week after the ceremony.
And I also wanted to say how particularly moved and enormously comforted my children and I were, and indeed still are, by the public response to Diana's death. It is inevitably very difficult to cope with grief at any time, but perhaps you might realize it's even harder when the whole world is watching at the same time.
The royal family's decision not to talk about Diana had the biggest impact on her sons, who never really got over her death.
But even Harry and I, over the years, have not talked enough about our mother. We've
never enough.
But they're trying to change that.
We will do everything we can to make sure that she's never forgotten.
For William, that means making his mother proud.
And I wouldn't let it break me. I wanted it to make me. I wanted her to be proud.
But for Harry, it meant refusing to allow history to repeat itself. In fact, his mother's death was the catalyst for him to step down from life as a senior royal.
When my mum was taken away from me at the age of 12, just before my 13th birthday, I didn't want the life.
And when he noticed that the media was becoming obsessed with his own wife, he took action and moved his family to the US to ensure that Meghan Markle wouldn't share Diana's fate.
You want to talk about history repeating itself? They're not going to stop until she dies.
When Harry and Meghan stepped down as royals, the world criticized the move, calling it selfish and unnecessary. Since then, they've been involved in a number of scandals concerning the royal family. But now, that might change, and it's all thanks to Princess Di. A silver lining in a very dark cloud. When the 2021 inquiry into Martin Bashir's interview with Diana revealed that he'd lied to gain her trust, the princess's struggles were again put under a limelight. But unlike last time, her sons are now old enough to speak out, and now they're opening up about their mother's last few months and how painful it was for them.
That BBC employees lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia. It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse, that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her.
Harry echoed those sentiments, explaining, "Our mother lost her life because of this, and nothing has changed. The ripple effect of a culture of exploitation and unethical practices ultimately took her life. We may not be able to go back in time and change what happened to Diana, but we can change the future. As Harry and Meghan demonstrated, there are serious problems within the royal family, and these aren't helped by the media's obsession with the monarchy. Despite all the hurt and pain the media caused in Diana's life, the tabloids have continued to hound her children, and now even her grandchildren. Instead, they should let the royal family be just that, a family. After all, behind the crowns and jewels, they are just people, and they have a right to privacy and happiness. It's what Diana would have wanted. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, stay awesome.